Hello.
Hello.
Here we are again.
We are.
Week
6.
6.
Advent 4.
Advent 4. Week 6. I've been doing it 10 times.
No. That's not right. Anyway, we've got new technology.
We have.
Well, we're being filmed in better quality.
4K or something.
Something like that. From the communications director.
Yeah.
So...
We belittled our attempts with the phone camera last week.
Terrible.
It looked like it was being done on a potato. Can you believe this?
No, I can't. It's outrageous. And anyway, he'll edit this bit out, so...
No, I hope not. No. So we're getting towards Christmas.
Very near.
Hence the Advent tree in the back of the picture, in the shot. And we've got one Sunday to go.
Mm. It's nice, actually, when Christmas is in the middle of the week, so you do get Advent 4.
It is.
Sometimes it gets squished out, doesn't it, if you're not careful. So
Yes, it does.
we've got the fourth Sunday of Advent this year.
Particularly in churches, though, where they will have carol services only.
On Advent 4?
On Advent 4.
Mm. No, well, we've got a full pattern of communion services and all kinds of things.
No, we've got some churches that have only got
Okay. Only got carol services.
That's all right. So there we are.
But if you're in church on Sunday morning, this is the gospel you might hear.
It is. Please read away.
I will. This is from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 1, verses 18 to the end. Now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfil what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. Mm-hmm.
Yes, a story we know very well. We've heard it many, many times. Does anything new leap out at you this time round?
I don't know, I might challenge you on a story we know well, because we know the story well of the Annunciation when Mary's visited by the angel. I just think Joseph gets much lesser billing in the Christmas story. So often I find people are surprised to know that Joseph was visited as well by an angel and things like that. So I like the fact that we're hearing this in church.
I've known only too well all the years that Joseph gets a second visitation and that Joseph is treated pretty shabbily, mainly by people in the Christmas story.
Oh, okay. Why?
Because he's kind of shut up. And we hear all about Mary and the baby, and the smelly shepherds get a good write-up, and these 3 wise men kings appear.
Yeah.
And Joseph's
just a background character. Even though what he's actually being asked to do is quite monumental.
In this bit of the story, it is.
So we're feeling a little bit of sympathy for Joseph.
I've always felt sympathetic for Joseph.
Have you?
Yeah.
It's a tough job.
It is the tough job being the stepfather of the Lord.
It is. It's funny. I've often pondered that that's exactly what he is. You know, we often talk about blended families and trickiness of family life, and most families these days are complicated in some way or other, and that's very true for the Holy Family. It was immediately a step-parent responsibility.
It is that lovely phrasing in this part of the gospel, isn't it? That he discovers that he's betrothed, his girlfriend is expecting,
and it's not his.
And it's not his. And you can have all kind of comical suggestions of what he would have said to her, or whatever. But the most comical bit, if that's the way you want to look at it, is the fact that he expected to be able to dismiss her quietly.
I'm not having this sexist commentary.
And,
Are you suggesting no women go quietly?
I'm not suggesting that at all, because of course it would have been known all around, or if not pretty quickly, it would have been known all around. And the very fact that he was prepared to do what he was planning on doing or thought about doing, which was to allow her, as we discussed earlier, to perhaps go find somebody else and still live with graciousness. There's something very powerful about that whole story, for me.
Yeah.
But then, of course, he does get visited.
He does.
And the angel appears and tells him, don't be afraid to marry her.
Yeah.
Don't, hang on there. All will be well in the end.
And I think this year I've pondered a lot about vocation, about why there's a calling for all these characters in the nativity story. There's a vocation, there's a calling from God to do something for him. And I think we all have a vocation, we all have a calling from God to serve him in all the different ways that we do in life. And Joseph's vocation was to take on that responsibility of Mary and Joseph.
Yeah.
And Jesus, Mary and Jesus, and to live up to being that father and that carer for a child who was really quite beyond anyone's imagination.
And perhaps God chose him because, as it mentions in the passage, he was righteous.
Yeah.
He was right with God in some ways. He was obviously a faithful follower, and did as God instructed.
And was deeply kind and loving.
Absolutely.
And honourable.
Yeah.
And open to the guidance of God. He didn't just dismiss his dream as nonsense and fantasy. He took it seriously and answered that call.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that Mary visited and she sees the angel and she has the conversation, whereas Joseph it's in a dream.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's how God works for some and not for others. But the response we hear straight away is, right, now I take on the, as you say, the vocation, the calling. I take that promise from God at full power, full strength for what it is. And we're grateful to Joseph for doing so.
We are. And he's voiceless.
He is.
He never speaks. As in whatever he obviously did speak, but it's not recorded in the Bible, which is unusual actually, because it's often women in the Bible who are voiceless and men who speak. But there's this real reversal here.
There is.
Which is really interesting to consider.
It is, because it's not the Jewish way, is it?
No. The woman to be held in such high regard.
In high regard. Except, of course, Mary's been promoted, hasn't she, beyond all imagination, because of the role that God has chosen for her, the vocation that God has chosen for her. And in fact, it is, as I guess with all parents, it is a joint responsibility and a joint vocation. Yeah. God has given that
both
to
of them. Yeah.
So I find it a very interesting passage. I think it's a wonderful lead into the next step of what is the nativity narratives, the birth narratives, and we're looking forward with great expectation to sharing that wonderful story.
It's exciting.
It is, but of course we are still in Advent. And as we've been saying, we mustn't forget to stop and to watch and to wait and to keep up, not to run ahead of ourselves, because I think we do all the time. So we've still got a few days to wait and to get ready.
And to listen.
And to ponder.
And to respond if God is calling us.
Because we won't hear him if we're too busy talking, which is probably why Joseph didn't say a lot in the first place.
He was good at listening.
He was good at listening.
Thank you. We've got a Christmas one coming next week.
We have. I'm told we have a Christmas.
Do join us for our Christmas talking head.
Please do.
As David said, we're still in Advent. Our Advent reflections go right up to Christmas Day itself. So do follow them on our website, beaminsterteamchurches.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram @Beaminster Team.